Hi there. I'm the author of Marc Marci, which is a romantic novel that just happens to have transgender characters in it. So you asked me why I went to write it or how I got to write it. The honest answer is transgender was in the news during the Obama administration as well as, and I remembered that there was a man who became a woman, and he was a tennis player named Renee Richards, but I didn't know he was transgender. It never occurred to me, and I really wasn't sure what transgender was, so I went to do research. And in my research, and being a romantic, I thought to myself, how would this person go about having a romance? And I started the story beginning out with this person didn't think about becoming a transgender. It was somebody in high school, like me, and probably like you, who was a nerd. Somebody who maybe didn't have a lot of friends, who maybe in today's era spends most of your time on the computer, where most of your friends have a hashtag as a name, and you know your hashtag friends, but you might have never met them. Well, I had friends, but I didn't have any real close friends. I could say to myself, okay, and I really wasn't that popular person who was going to be the high school king or queen or something. And things happen in my character's life. Now, Mark is the character's life. That all of a sudden, before he graduates high school, I'll give it away, his parents die and he becomes an orphan. And he goes and he wants to do a backpacking trip through Europe like his parents did when they met each other. And I thought to myself, what a cool experience. Here he's going to go and he's going to try to relive what his parents went through 25 years earlier, or 30 years earlier, whatever. And he's going to do that, actually it has to be more than 30 years, let's say 40 years earlier. And he's going to do what his parents are going to do, and then things happen. And I'm not going to tell you what happens, but he before this point is actually doesn't know where he's at with gender. He's never had a sexual experience. I don't know about you, but I never had a sexual experience really in high school. It was only afterwards that I had real sexual experiences. So that was what my character goes through. And something happens, and my character decides that he's a better woman than he is a man. And he wants to live a life as a woman. Now, how did I do this? I had to do a hell of a lot of research. As I said in my previous YouTube Against the Woke Society, I had one of my forensics psychiatrists provide me with some medical studies that had been done. I read those. I had read through various transgender websites where people talk and ask questions. I had an editor and a proofreader who were transgenders that went through my novel, and I went through thousands of hours probably of YouTube people talking about either their transition or the detransition and what their family life was like and what their lives were like and what they hated and what they loved about going through this process. And I tried to make my characters as authentic as possible, because when you're an author, that's the most important thing. You have to do your research so people believe that you are who you are. Now, a lot of my story starts out in London, and there's a little bit in Belgium too. So I visited London, love the city, hate the food, but to make it authentic, not only did I have to do a lot of research on London itself and the trains that you take and the type of vehicles that somebody might have in a different character and at different locations and different. I had one of my friends who lived in London for over 35 years read through my novel and make corrections to it. Because I obviously made some mistakes as far as authenticity of London and of Northern England. Then I had, most of the story then falls back, eventually back to Chicago, where I'm from Chicago. It was easy to talk about, and I had to decide, what do I want for my character? And Marc becomes Marci. And Marci, I wanted her to be an individual of strong backbone. I want her to be a character that people like. But she's not going to start out that way. She's going to make mistakes in her transition. For instance, girls learn from an early age what they can do and what they can't do with guys. They have like a second sense that this might be a dangerous situation. This is something that I should avoid. Marci's going to have to learn that. And she does. Marci's going to make some mistakes and is going to be, maybe feel some inadequacies when she comes back to her home, which is Cleveland, and she's going to run into people that she knew that didn't know that she transitioned years earlier. And how are they going to look at her? And is she strong enough to accept maybe their criticism? And I had to do some play with that. And Marci has a backbone, and she's a good woman, and she's going to come into people's lives, and she's going to make them better because of their relationship with her. She's going to come into people's lives when they have crisis, and she's going to be able to take charge and be that strong person for them. And then I needed to have Marci. What does Marci want in life? And the goal of my character is that you're going to look at Marci, and for the second half of my novel, you're going to forget that she's transgender. You're going to look at her as a normal woman that is like any other woman, and that's what I wanted to achieve. And Marci, that's what Marci wants. In some of the YouTube characters that I've listened to, there were several people who were turning off their channel for the reason that they didn't want any longer to be considered a transgender novelist. They wanted to be just a woman, and they wanted everyone who come into their lives to look at them as a woman. They wanted to have children, even though they biologically can't have children. They wanted to adopt children or marry someone with children, and they wanted to be a woman in every sense of the word, and they didn't want anyone to ever look at them with an eye that they weren't or a second-class citizen. And that's what Marci wants, and that's what I wanted to develop for Marci, and I think I accomplished it, because the people who read my novel, that's the way they interpreted it, and that's the way they liked it. And it is a romance novel, as well as a lot of controversy, and a lot of the novel makes it so you have to do a lot of soul searching and thinking. And if I accomplish that, then I accomplished what I wanted to do as an author. And this is my martini to you and signing off.